Kind of similar to the bush thing, there's another concept that I really want to talk about. And I think for this one, let's open paint. The concept that a lot of people ask me about, where they always want to know what are the best meta ADCs. Whenever I look at someone's Opera.GG recently, I feel like always see the same thing. I always see the same thing. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over 3 different possible scenarios of person that you can be. We'll have Timmy, Jimmy, and Lenny. So I couldn't sleep last night and I thought of this great idea. All of these are 3 different people. Timmy has the time to play 100 solo queue games. Jimmy has the time to play 250 solo queue games. And Lenny has the time to play 500. Now, first of all, we have to acknowledge that as a baseline, Timmy is obviously at a disadvantage compared to Jimmy and Lenny, who plays less games, right? He plays less games than Jimmy and Lenny, so he has less time to spend to improve. But this is where I really want to get down to the crux of the conversation, because a lot of people are very, very obsessed with playing meta champions, always playing the best possible champions at all times. And I like to advise that you should only play 2 to 3 champions. And let's break down a little bit how this looks in the numbers. So let's say Timmy plays what's meta. Timmy looks at LOL Pros, no, skill guide capped, skill capped, whatever the it's called. So he plays 10 games of each champion. He plays 10 champions for 10 games, or no, 10 games for 9, and then he has 10 random, 10 like fill games, you know, because Timmy gets filled sometimes. Everybody gets filled sometimes, right? 90% of his games he's not filled, but 10 of his games are filled. So then we think, okay, so now Timmy is playing the champ that he has the most games on. He's only played at 10 games. If you play 10 games of a champion, would you say you have good grasp of that champion? Do you have good mastery of that champion? I would argue you're not even scratching the surface. Let's go to Lenny. Plays what's meta as well, but he doesn't do it as extremely as Timmy. He doesn't have 9 champions, but he has more like, he has 1 champion with 100 games, and then he has quite a few champions with 40 to 60 games. So Lenny is more able to play X8, right? And then he has like, let's do the same fill percentage as Timmy. So he has like 50 games where he's filled. Beautiful drawing here, right? Now Lenny is playing on his most champ. He can play 160 games, which is a solid amount. That is a solid amount. But he should have on his most played champion. But on his other champions, he should... Wait, I think my math is wrong here. No, it should be 7, no? Times 7, not times 8. Whatever, don't mind the math. Don't mind the math too much. He has 7 champions that he's pretty damn good on. And then he has 1 champion that he's really good on, right? And for Lenny, this strategy works. But most people will find themselves in this category. And then let's go over what Jimmy does. Jimmy has watched Jackspektra. Jimmy knows that if you want to get OP.GG review, Jackspektra always tells you, play 2 to 3 champions only. So Jimmy has 150 games on his most played champ, and then he has another champ where he plays 50 games, and then he has a third champ that's more situational that he plays here and there with 25 champs, and then he has 25 fill games. Now what we'll find here that's very interesting is that even though Jimmy has half of the games that Lenny has, he still has 50 more games on his most played champion. What I'm trying to point out with all of this is that if you don't have that much time to play League of Legends, playing meta is spreading yourself way too wide. The meta champions will change every 2 weeks, right? We have a balance update. For example, Kai'Sa's getting nerfed next patch. And to be honest, kind of this video started because I made a Kai'Sa guide and so many people were like, but Kai'Sa's getting nerfed. And it made me think 2 things. One is Kai'Sa's been good in the meta for years, so if she's too nerfed, they're gonna buff her right back up again. And the second thing is, why would like learning a champion not be worth it just because she's getting nerfed? That's silly. You should not be chasing what is good in the 2-week time frame or 1-month time frame if it doesn't get nerfed, especially if you find yourself, if you look at your Opera.GG and you have 100 to 250 games played in your last split, I beg you, play 2 to 3 champions. You will find that you will get more enjoyment out of the game because you're less obsessed with trying to min-max and all that boring. You will be so much better on the champions that you actually are able to invest time into. Jimmy on his 150th game of Kai'Sa is going to be 1,000 times better than Timmy on his 10th game of Jhin. Even if Jhin is a stronger champ than Kai'Sa after Kai'Sa gets nerfed. You know, pick your champion pool carefully and focus on them a lot. Because unless you fall into Lenny's bracket of games, where it's actually more understandable that you could play a large amount of games. But even here, I would argue that Lenny would benefit of having 250 to 300 games of one champion and just fully focusing on that. Play what you enjoy, don't play what's meta, and if you enjoy is what's meta, that's fine. And also, if you're trying to pick a champion that, you know, to main for a long period of time, I would advise you to look for champions that has a lot of one-tricks. Because what that means is that usually, when a champion has a high one-trick fan base, that means it's never really in meta and it's never really out of meta. A good champion like this is Draven. I think Jhin is a champion that Riot always kind of keeps strong. I think Kai'Sa is a champion that Riot always kind of keeps strong. I think I said Draven already. Jinx is a champion that Riot always tries to keep strong. Ashe is a champion that Riot always tries to keep strong. And these champions have been strong for years. They've had a few bad patches here and there, but they've been really good for such a long time. Of course, I would love for you guys to watch all my tier lists and be obsessed with the meta, because I can make content out of that too. But at the end of the day, I want to help you guys climb. I want to help you guys improve. You have a limited amount of time playing League, and you need to figure out how much time do I actually have to play League, and how should I dedicate that time? You know, it's like if you were to learn how to play the guitar, you wouldn't just try to learn every single song. You would start with one song, learn that song, master that song, get really good at that song, and then you move on to something else. But with League, you can, to be honest, progress with that one song forever. You know, people go from Iron, one-tricking, one champ all the way to Challenger. But I think when one-tricking can be a bit boring because you're playing the same type of playstyle every single game, and if you lose on that champ, then maybe you get tilted and it kind of just starts to stack up. For me, that's how I felt with Draven, at least. I got bored of Draven and I got kind of bored of the game, and it felt so much more fresh when I played different champs. But now I feel like playing 2 to 3 champs, really just tryharding on those, feeling like I want to get really good at those. If you're below platinum, I'd recommend you watch guides on those champions. Just really try to consume a lot of content regarding those champs. Watch high elo streamers playing them, watch high elo players, watch pro players, everything, you know, just try to absorb everything you can about that champ. Feel like you've really mastered that champion, and then do that with 2 to 3 champs, boom, you're golden. For sure. You'll have such a huge advantage over all these noobs that are just trying to meta slave, trying to play what's best on every single patch. And yeah, you don't want to end up like Timmy. You want to be like Jimmy. That's why I couldn't sleep last night. Honest to God, that's all I was thinking about, was making this presentation. That's all I was thinking about. Tell me your end goal is having viewer games in Master? Yes, sir. I mean, I already have that, unfortunately. I mean, there's a few Lennys, right? But most people are not Lennys. Most people are not Lennys. That's the thing. Most people that I've opened up to review and that I coach, I mean, to be honest, I kind of cringe as well when I coach someone and they have like 30 games. You only have time to play 30 games during a split, but you paid for coaching? You should just play more. That was it for me, chat.